Raider Nation, Trizzy, Trace, and I, we're going to be doing the One Chip Challenge this Thursday, 4 p.m. Eastern Time, 1 p.m. Pacific. So, what do I need you to do? Subscribe, because if you're not subscribed, you will not be able to watch it. Turn on your notifications and join us for our live show this Thursday. I got to salute y'all. We've been repping. You guys have been killing it this entire season, and I told you, more subs, more participation during our live shows means more live shows. So, guess what? Tuesday, Thursday, and a Friday live show here on the Raiders Report. Raider Nation, what's going on? You're watching the Raiders Report, and today's show is presented by Manscaped. 20% off at manscaped.com. All you got to remember is use code Raiders. Tax season is right around the corner, and if you save a few extra dollars, go spend a few of those extra dollars on getting some awesome Manscaped stuff. So, coming up here on today's show, trending Raiders draft news and rumors. The Silver and Black have been linked to potentially trading up to the number 3 pick. And what's one of the biggest things that could potentially hinder that? What teams like the Carolina Panthers do, what teams like the Houston Texans end up doing, the Arizona Cardinals, and then all of the other teams potentially interested and making a move. All of the people that pick in front of the Raiders, there's going to be some impacts. And with all the rumors circulating around quarterbacks, there's going to be some interesting stuff. So there was a report that came out over the weekend from Adam Schefter. And Schefter said, I guess I shouldn't say over the weekend. It was Monday. I was off on Monday, just so y'all know. There was a report that came out from Adam Schefter. And it simply just said that 6 teams are interested in potentially, or 6 teams have inquired about trading up with the Arizona Cardinals at number 3. I can confidently tell you that the Las Vegas Raiders are, in fact, one of those 6 teams that have called up with the Arizona Cardinals about potentially making that trade. So here's the exact tweet from Schefter. At least 6 teams have inquired with the Arizona Cardinals about trading up for the 3rd overall pick in the upcoming April 27th NFL Draft. Cardinals still are mulling whether to move the pick or to make it. So when I read 6 teams, I knew for a fact the Raiders are one of those teams. If you follow the Raiders, if you follow this show, I'm a big believer in where there is smoke, there is fire. There has been enough smoke around the Raiders potentially trading up to number 1. There's been enough smoke about the Raiders trading up to number 3 that I know for a fact that the Silver and Black are one of those teams. Does that mean that a trade ultimately ends up getting done? No, of course not. And if you're Dave Ziegler, if you're Josh McDaniels, you're not doing your job correctly unless you call up Arizona and say, how much does it cost? Because all you got to do is find out the cost. If you don't even do that, you're not doing your job correctly. So other teams, now this is merely speculation by me. Other teams that I could see potentially calling Arizona asking, what does it cost for the number 3 pick? I think the Indianapolis Colts are 100% one of those teams. I believe that the Seattle Seahawks are a team to keep in mind. The Atlanta Falcons are definitely another intriguing team that I think could trade up to number 3. The Tennessee Titans, and then the New York Jets. Not so much because the New York Jets don't have Aaron Rodgers, but it's also, in the event that Aaron Rodgers ends up falling through, well, then you still got to know the price for number 3 overall. In terms of the Raiders trading up to number 3, the Raiders were 100%, in fact, interested in the number 1 overall pick. That has been confirmed that they tried to trade up with the Bears, or at least called. Carolina had a better offer. Also, excuse me, the Raiders trying to trade up to 3, to me, the only way that this ends up getting done is if they go after Bryce Young or C.J. Stroud. If Young or Stroud are on the board at 3, that's where you could see Ziegler and McDaniels get a little bit creative. I also was told that by a good source probably a month or 2 ago. I shared it with all y'all on the Raiders Report, and now you're starting to see more reports starting to filter in about apparently there's 1 or 2 quarterbacks that the Raiders like. It's one of those 2 guys. Also, on top of that, the Raiders, they have met with every single top quarterback in this year's draft. Yeah, it's their job to do it. They need to do their due diligence, but they're also doing it because there is a legit interest at potentially taking a quarterback. So here's your opportunity to be the host of the Raiders Report. How many just win babies on the Raiders trading up to number 3 How many? Is it 0, 1, 2, 3, or 4? If you're new to the show, because we are getting close to 136,000 subscribers, if you say 0, it means that you don't think that there's any chance of it happening. 1, just win, baby. I like to think 25% chance. 2, 50, 3, 75%. 4, it's 100% chance of it happening. So how many just win babies on the Raiders trading up to number 3? For me, it is just 1 baby. I would even say you're probably looking at 5, 10% chance of happening. It isn't impossible, but CJ Stroud or Bryce Young have to be there. If Young, Stroud are there, and we're looking at, Carolina Panthers, they end up taking a quarterback. They already traded up to number 1, so one of those guys is off the board. Adam Schefter reported on Tuesday that the Houston Texans are not a lock to take a quarterback at number 2. This has been a topic of discussion that Jeremy Chuggs and I have discussed, because when you go back and you look at a lot of their drafts, they haven't taken a quarterback with that number 1 overall pick. I get that they're at 2, but still, and if DeMeco Ryans wants to build for the future, option. They also have pick number 12, so if they wanted to go up from 12 and get an Anthony Richardson and get a Will Levis, they could potentially do that. But for me, I know for a fact that the Raiders love Bryce Young. McDaniels loves the idea of him being able to run his offense because they believe Bryce Young is the smartest quarterback in this year's class. That is what I've been told from people who I trust inside of the Raiders. However, though, their favorite quarterback, from what I understand, is C.J. Stroud. And this has been Ziegler's guy for a very, very long time. I look at odds from Vegas, and the latest Vegas odds have C.J. Stroud as by far the favorite to go number 1 off the board to Carolina, and I could see it end up happening. If you follow the Carolina Panthers social media, if you follow them and all their reports, Josh McCown literally hinted at Stroud at the Combine we'll be able to find you a good spot in Charlotte. So I think that ends up happening. But if Houston misses or doesn't take a QB at 2, you could even see the Raiders get ballsy enough to try to trade up to number 2 because of their relationship with Nick Caserio. Coming up here, more Raiders draft rumors to get into because there's just so many questions around what Dave Ziegler, around what Josh McDaniels could potentially do come draft night. Now, I want to make sure that you guys got the perfect package come draft night as well, and who knows, maybe your girlfriend can trade up all her pieces and you can find the end zone. So use promo code Raiders to get your hands on the perfect package at manscaped.com. We're going to put the link for you guys. It's going to be available in the comments and in the description of today's show. But with tax season here, it's literally here. I know me, I did my taxes. I got a few dollars back, and I was like, you know what? If I'm going to invest, I'm going to invest in myself, because I know this. When I go to bed and Alex and I, do our thing, I sleep better. I'm just going to be real with y'all. And the perfect package helps that to happen. So whether it's the Lawnmower 4.0, whether it's the ball deodorant, the ball toner, once she gets down there, I don't want it to smell terrible. I don't want it to look like, just an absolute mess. Manscaped is going to help you keep all of your downstairs 100% clean. So join the 8 million men who have already got started with Manscaped around there. 20% off and free shipping at manscaped.com with code Raiders. What do you think? Smells? I think Jeremy, today's National Fondue Cheese Day. I think he's got some Famunda cheese going on. Sounds like Ganon. What's going on? I'll tell you this, though. Overall, sounds like Jeremy needs to put some Manscaped deodorant on his butthole. That's all I know. I don't know if it helps for that area down there, the Lawnmower 4.0. We could probably make it happen. Seriously, though, use code Raiders, manscaped.com. I see TMI from Scott O'Brien. Scott, hey, we're family here. That's what it's about. All right, let's keep rolling here on today's Raiders Report show around the latest draft rumors. So the main topic of discussion is trading up to number 3. And we know that there's a chance that the Raiders could potentially move up. However, there is a report that is circulating around right now that the Raiders won't sell out for a quarterback. Dave Ziegler, Josh McDaniels know that they have a lot of needs, and there's been some new reports even in the last week that apparently Ziegler and McDaniels didn't know how bad the Raiders roster was when they accepted the job, which I don't necessarily know how much I believe in that. Also, that's kind of on McDaniels and Ziegler to be like, Why would you accept a job if you don't really know your roster overall? So, yes, there was a chance that they might not sell out. The way that I read this report is they're not going to sell out for a quarterback that they don't 100% love, that they don't 100% believe can totally change their team. But I also know that they want to try to build their team through the draft via a lot of picks on the defensive side of the football. The report that really got this whole ball rolling is from Jeremy Fowler on the Raiders trading up for a quarterback. So, the Raiders are looking hard, shout out to Manscaped, at all the quarterbacks, but they have a lot of needs, as I was told. So, they're not going to stretch the issue too much and just sell out for a quarterback just yet. We'll see. It'd have to be the right opportunity. I mean, Fowler there is telling you exactly what I just mentioned. The Raiders have one or two quarterbacks in mind. It is C.J. Stroud and it is Bryce Young. They are not willing to sell the farm unless one of those two players becomes available because they know that this team needs a brand new facelift on the defensive side of the football. They want to get a bunch of players on defense who they believe can fit all the same scheme because they are sick and tired of having all these different players. The Paul Guenther system, the Gus Bradley system, the Patrick Graham system. You smush them all together, it doesn't work. You want to retransform your defense, you get players that you believe can fit in your system in free agency and in the draft. So, that also tells me that they're not 100% sold on a Will Levis. Does he have elite arm talent? No doubt about it. However, though, there's definitely some concerns around his ability to be able to pick up NFL offenses. He's 24 years old. Yeah, the injuries were something that I looked at because he was a lot better before the injuries. But if you're not sold on Will Levis, then don't do it. You don't trade up for him at number 3. Anthony Richardson, he is an incredible athlete. Nobody's going to dispute that. However, though, there is a huge risk here. And if you are unwilling to take that big of a risk, then I don't think that you're willing to sell the farm either. So how about this? I got a question for everyone out there. Has nothing to do with the draft. But I know one thing. During the draft, Chugs and I were going to be taking down some boots. And if you want to challenge Jeremy Chugs in person to a boot race, you got an opportunity. But before I tell you about it, could you beat Chugs in a boot race? 3 beers, 36 ounces. Give me an HY for hell yeah, or give me an HN for hell no. I love y'all, and I know there's a lot of people out there that love to party with Jeremy Chugs and I. I don't think you can do it. In fact, if you do it, we got some prizes for some people. So Chugs and I are going to be hanging out with Raider Nation on Saturday, April 15th at the address that you see here. Chugs and I will get there at 7 p.m. It's a huge Raiders event. Vendors, food, it's BYOB. There's going to be hundreds, and I mean hundreds of Raiders fans there. Graf will be there with us. We're going to be hanging out with the nation. We're going to have a few beers. We're going to talk some Raiders. It's going to be a hell of a time. So hopefully we will see you guys this Saturday, April 15th at that address. Now, we're going to continue to roll here with some Raiders draft rumors because when you talk about quarterbacks, I said on this show, I think there is a 100% chance that the Raiders take a QB. That does not necessarily mean that they take one early. I just think that they end up taking one in general. In terms of a top 30 visit, they have met with Bryce Young, C.J. Stroud, Will Levis, Hendon Hooker, Anthony Richardson. Before the NFL Combine, they met with Aiden O'Connell, and I know for a fact that the Raiders really like O'Connell. And if you were to ask me, Mitch, who is the most likely quarterback that the Raiders take in, I guess I should say, on day 3, it would be O'Connell from Purdue. However, though, I also know that they like Hendon Hooker a lot as a potential guy to look at in round 2. Other quarterbacks to monitor. Tanner McKee, Stanford, really smart player. I don't personally think he's that good of a player or is going to be that good, but I could see McDaniels and Ziegler talking themselves into him. Jay Kaner is going to be a player that I know for a fact the Raiders will meet with, and then Stetson Bennett. You want to talk about a QB who can run a system, and I also made this point on a video I did earlier for the Raiders Report. He's going to get drafted, but if I were to say which quarterback is the most likely quarterback to get traded for decent value a year or two down the road that never plays that you get on day 3, it's probably Stetson Bennett. And I know that the Raiders have taken quarterbacks in the past in hopes of you might be able to flip them. Not too often you can buy a car, 2 years later sell it, and you get the exact same value for it. I think that's what you could see with a guy like Stetson Bennett. So with all of that, I showed you all the quarterbacks that they've met with, other QBs to keep in mind. Which QB do you think that the Raiders are most likely to draft? It's a tough question. It's actually a segment that I've been thinking about doing here on the Raiders Report. So before the draft happens, I think I might rank like the top 10 quarterbacks and put number 1, the guy that they are most likely to draft. That can change in a heartbeat. There's no doubt about it. But I want to know from everyone tuned in right now to our live show, which QB do you think the Raiders are most likely to draft this year?